New Orleans Saints, Tampa Bay Buccaneers betting preview, ladies and gentlemen. We are almost there. A day away. I'm filming this on a Saturday. Day away from Spencer Rattler's debut against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Today, we will talk about the betting landscape with this game. We're going to speak specifically to some player props, some bets, what I'm looking at, and what you could possibly profit off of come noon tomorrow. So let's go ahead and take a look at the line itself. It's sitting at Saints plus 3.5. Bucks minus 3.5, minus 105. Okay, so it looks like there's a little bit of money. Looks like a little bit of liability on the 3.5. I would assume this is the high watermark. So if we look at this is kind of a weird market flow because you're looking at Saints for minus 3. Okay, Carr gets hurt. Saints get absolutely dog walked on Monday night. It moves all the way to 3.5. Now, what I would say is, because it's one thing you could look at this and be like, oh, well, there's a ton of steam on the Bucks. If it went from plus 3, flip the fave all the way to 3.5, I think we're in the realm now of this is an overreaction. I don't think Spencer Rattler and Derek Carr, I don't think the difference between them is 7 points. I think that's crazy. It's still the New Orleans Saints at home. It's still a good defense. Yes, you could also factor in the schedule as far as like the Saints on a short rest and all that, the Bucks being in New Orleans since Tuesday. But I think at this point it's too much. And I think we will see 3s. I certainly don't think we'll see 4s. So I would assume 3.5 is the watermark. So if you want to get in on the Saints, get in on them at 3.5. That's where I would get in at. I can only at this point, you can only play the Saints. I mean, if you were really looking ahead, and we had a couple, in the group, we had a couple people saying to take the Bucks early at plus 3, at plus 2.5, and then I'm sure they would come back around on the Saints. But right now for you, only thing I could do is look at the 3.5. And if you look at the splits, not surprising, but 82% of the handles on the Bucks, 77% of the total bets or the tickets are on the Bucks. This is notable because if we do see 3s, this is that good old-fashioned reverse line movement. And y'all know I love reverse line movement, a.k.a. RLM. So if you're seeing 82% of the handles, 77% of the tickets here, and then all of a sudden 3.5s go to 3s, that would be pretty nice. That would be something that would be very notable, and which it looks like is trending that direction. It looks like if you're just looking at the bet board, it looks like it's trending that way. As far as the total, a lot of variables. I would probably lean under, but again, so many variables. It's hard enough to bet this game. I can't give you anything on the total. If we'll just do the same thing. 74%. Now this is notable. 74% of the handle and 79% are on the over. People love betting overs. That's not surprising. But if we go to the total here, it opened 44.5. It is down to 42 in most spots, and then some 41.5. So if you look at BetStamp, same thing. All right, so a majority of the money and tickets are on the over, yet the number has dropped. So that is something that I would take note of. I would, now you got to worry about key numbers and worry about what numbers you're getting, but 42.5, somewhere in there, I'm probably playing. The under, certainly the number at the opener of 44.5 certainly looks to be an under spot. But, so that's my kind of thoughts on the total. If you look at player props, so I think this is where you can kind of exploit. So the first thing we'll talk about are the Saints players. In every interview that I saw this week, Spencer Rattler talked about wanting to get the ball to his playmakers, find his playmakers. That's what we heard all week long. In the preseason, he talked about how good Chris Olave was. He talked about how impressed he was with Olave. That's the guy I'm targeting. That's the guy that I'm looking at. Chris Olave, over 4.5 receptions, plus 105. So we're kind of bucking the market here. We're kind of bucking the trend. 4.5 across the board. Overs plus money across the board. So liability on the under. we're bucking it here. I'm taking Spencer Rattler at his word on these press conferences where he's saying, I'm going to find my playmakers. I think his panic button will be Chris Olave. I think this game's going to be tight. I think this game's going to be close. I don't think the Saints are going to be able to run the football successfully. This is not a game where the Saints are going to be able to run the ball for, 25 carries for 110 yards, not against this Tampa Bay front. So if Rattler is going to have to throw, I would assume we're going to see Clint Kubiak make sure that Chris Olave is in that game plan after catching so much flack this week for Olave having one catch on 2 targets while Derek Carr was in the game. So I would look at Olave's over. I gave this out a couple days ago. I will have a ticket on this. More than likely, I'll have a ticket on the Saints plus 3.5. But I will have a ticket for sure on Olave 4.5. I think the same thing we just talked about. So props are relatively correlated. Like, you come up with a game script, you think about how you see the game going, you see about the flow, you think, okay, what is each team going to do, and then you play off that. So if you follow that line of thinking, then the next prop that we would be trying to get a hold of is Alvin Kamara unders. So we just said, I don't think this team's going to be able to run the football successfully. So I would look at Alvin Kamara rushing yards under. So his rushing prop right now, let's just go ahead and take a look at 68.5. Okay, so let's do some quick math here. Pull out the old calculator. So if we're assuming he's going to get somewhere in the neighborhood of, so let's say 69, somewhere in the neighborhood of 15 carries. If he got 15 carries, all right, if he got 15 carries, he would have to have a 4.6 yards per carry to bust this 69 or the 68.5 to get 69 yards. All right. I don't see Alvin Kamara getting 4.6 yards per carry. What is his rushing attempts? His rushing attempts is 15.5. Okay, so they're expecting him to get, so I said 15, so they're right around there. So let's just say 16. So if he has 16 carries, okay, if he goes over his, if he has 16 carries, if he has 60, did it just go up to 16.5 right in front of our face? Did that just, was I seeing things? I thought it was 15.5. Did it just move right? Oh, that was longest rush. Okay, longest rush was 15.5. Okay, rush attempts is 16.5. All right, so if he gets 16 attempts, he has to average 4.31 yards a carry. And then 17 attempts, he would have to average a little over 4 yards a carry. Okay, so I don't know. Are you going to tell me that Alvin's is going to, let's look at the Bucs defense here. So the Bucs rushing defense is 8th in the NFL. Pretty sporty. Yeah, I like this a lot. I mean, I think he's going to have to get, if he got 18 carries, it'd be 3.83 repeating yards a carry. So is he going to get 18 carries? Because I think he's going to be right a little under 4 yards a carry. I think that's what all of this shows. So Alvin Kamara unders. Let's see. It's Bet Stamp. Was Bet Stamp showing that? All right. Let's see. Rush yards. Man, Bet Stamp. Damn, Fanatics. I mean, again, who's actually using Fanatics as sportsbook? I don't know. But, man, yeah, 70.5 at Fanatics is pretty sporty. That's pretty nice. I mean, 69 at ESPN Bet, 68 across the board at the legitimate sports books. Do I open up a Fanatics account just to get 70.5? Yeah, I like that a lot. I like Alvin under. If you can get a 70.5 or a 69.5. All right, let's look at the Bucs. So the Bucs have 2 players that I'm kind of looking at. All right, so if I ask you, what is the big defensive matchup or matchup in general this game? What matchup do you first think of? The matchup you're first going to think of is Marshawn Lattimore and Mike Evans. Okay, I'm with you. I agree. The Saints are a team that zigzags a lot. Okay, the Saints got eaten up by the tight end Travis Kelce on Monday night. When they got eaten up by Dallas Goedert, the following week, Kyle Pitts had 0 catches with 0 yards. So I would assume the tight end is going to be nothing as well. So if Mike Evans is being locked down by Marshawn Lattimore, where does that leave us for the Bucs? It leaves us to Chris Godwin. Okay, so Chris Godwin props is what I'm looking at. Chris Godwin over 5.5. Let's take a look at what Chris Godwin has been doing. So let's go ahead and take a look at the target share and all that. Go to the Bucs, go to stats, go to Chris Godwin. All right, so Chris Godwin is getting, he got 6 targets last game, 9 targets against Philly, 9 targets against Denver, 8 targets against Detroit, 8 targets against Washington. Okay, so last week was actually his least amount of usage. So he went over 5.5. He went over 5.5 in 4 out of 5 games, which is a pretty good trend. I think this usage goes up because of this right here. So the Saints, where is the defense versus receiver? The Saints are really good against wide receiver ones. Saints are number 1 in the NFL in stopping wide receiver 1. Thank you, Marshawn Lattimore. The Saints are not great against wide receiver 2s. The Saints are 17th against wide receiver 2s. Chris Godwin is that wide receiver 2. So the Saints are going to try and shut down and have successfully shut down the wide receiver 1s, which is Mike Evans, which leads me to Chris Godwin over. So Chris Godwin over 5.5 catches seems like the move. If you wanted to, you could also get involved with his yards. 62.5 seems good to me. All right, the next player here for the Bucs is Bucky Irving. No pun intended. Bucky Irving is better than Rachaad White in general, and Rachaad White is hurt. Will Rachaad White play? Game time decision, I've seen doubtful. I've seen game time decision. I've seen he ain't playing. So let's just assume he doesn't play. If he doesn't play, the Saints already aren't great against the run. The Saints have been one of those teams where teams can absolutely run on them. If you look at their rush numbers, they are currently 12th in the NFL. If you assume that the game line is right and the Bucs are favored, the Bucs will be winning. They're going to be trying to run the football. I would assume that Bucky, he's going to get a ton of carries. He's going to get a ton of carries, and his yards are at 60 rush yards. Okay, 60.5, and then his attempts 14.5. So 14.5 does seem kind of low. Not going to lie. So if we go get the old calculator out again. So 60 divided by, let's just say 14. So he has to average 4.2 yards a carry. He's currently averaging 5.6 yards a carry. So let's just say he averages 4.5 yards a carry. Let's go to 61 divided by 4.5 yards a carry. He needs to get 13. He needs to get 14 carries. So all this lines up to me of Bucky. If you really drop his average down to 4.5, all you need is 61 yards with a game script that says they're going to be running the football. So like I said, 61 divided by 4.5 is 13.5. So all this lines up pretty well for Bucky Irving rushing. Now again, the number has gone up. The number did move up, 59.5 at ESPN Bet. So be careful. You're getting the worst of it at this point, but I think it still points to him getting involved in the rushing attack. And then I think he does. Yeah, so I would definitely take a look at Godwin over receptions. Play with his yards too if you want. Bucky over attempts and yards, but I'm much more confident in the yards because of how porous the Saints' run defense can be. I would take a look at, they have Baker Mayfield. All right, Baker Mayfield 12.5. Let's see what Baker's been doing. Because I know the idea is that he's going to be able to run, right? He's going to be able to run around on the Saints. I would, if we do the zigzag theory, got to be worried about that. He had 6 carries for 42 yards against Atlanta, 4 for 10 against Philly. No carries against Denver, a really good defense. 5 for 34, 3 for 21. So he has certainly been running around. No doubt about that. I mean, his rush attempts is 3.5. You also got to factor in kneel downs and things like that too. So, I mean, they have longest rush on here. Longest rush for Baker, 8.5. Maybe you go with the longest rush if you like him running because he just springs one, runs for a first down. Yeah, I could take a look at. I would take a look at his longest rush, I think, before anything else. Because his yardage, you also can get chunked with kneel downs. But I know a lot of people are going to be talking about Baker. Let's look at the tight end. Old Kate Otten. Kate Otten receiving yards, 34.5. Seems like a lot just off the bat. Saints normally, I believe, give up about 45 yards to tight ends. Otten's going 3 for 4 for 44, the long of 22, 16, 13, 6 for 9, 52 yards, 7 for 8, 47. Yeah, I mean, let's see. Kate Otten to 34.5 and then 3.5. I'd probably go his receptions before I went his yards. Saints had a lot of injury issues last week as well. The tight end might have inflated the numbers a little bit. But, yeah, I mean, as far as like what I know for sure I'll be betting on, I think right now would be Saints plus 3.5, Olave over 4.5, Godwin over 5.5, and Irving over 60.5. And it's always hard to bet, like, you know, Saints unders when you're at the game, but I'll have to let the Bloody Marys talk to me on Alvin's rushing yards. But there you go. All right, we did the betting preview. Good luck out there. Be careful. Let me know what you end up on. Hit me up on Twitter. Let me know what bets you're making. Thank you very much for watching. I'll see you in the next video.